was 15 when I woke up in a hospital bed, stitches above my eye ribs, bandaged, the taste of dried blood still in my mouth, and not a single person asking who did it to me. The nurse just adjusted my IV and said I was lucky to be alive. But luck had nothing to do with it. If anything, I felt cursed alive, yes, but not really living. My name is Kayla Monroe. I grew up in a beige house on Parkview Lane that looked like any other middle-class home in a quiet Kentucky town. White shutters, trimmed hedges, a welcome mat that always lied. My stepfather, Randy, coached the high school football team. The whole town adored him. He called the mayor by his first name and volunteered at the church. My mother, Denise, ran her own salon and loved to brag about how far we've come. To everyone else, we were the American dream. To me, it was a house of secrets. When I was 11, Randy started showing me attention. He'd press too close when I washed dishes, brush his hand across my chest when passing behind me. I knew it was wrong, even at that age. When I told my mom, her face turned cold. She slapped me so hard I fell against the fridge. "Don't you dare lie about that man," she hissed. "You're trying to ruin our family." I was 11. Ruin what family? From then on, I knew silence was the rule. Whenever Randy would come into my room at night, I'd freeze. I'd pretend I was somewhere else, anywhere else. When I cried, he called me dramatic. When I screamed, he covered my mouth with his rough palm and growled, "Be quiet, or your mom'll hear." But I knew better, she always heard. She just never cared. By 14, the rules changed. It wasn't just touches in the dark. Randy was violent. If I looked at him wrong, I got slapped. If I spilled milk, he punched the counter near my head. One night, I forgot to take the chicken out to defrost. He backhanded me so hard I saw stars. My mom said nothing, just stood there painting her nails. "You make it so hard for us to love you," she said without looking up. I stood in silence, holding my jaw, tasting blood, wondering what I had done to deserve this life. School was the only place I could breathe. But even that was suffocating. I wore long sleeves in August. Said I fell down the stairs too often. The teachers asked but never pressed. The guidance counselor called my mom once. The next night, Randy locked me in the bathroom for 3 hours. When I finally got out, my mom sat on the couch sipping wine and warned, "Next time you run your mouth, you'll end up with nowhere to go." That night, I locked my bedroom door with a chair and cried into my pillow until it soaked through. I thought, maybe if I disappeared, it would all stop. Maybe then they'd be sorry. But I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to live like that. Then came the night everything snapped. Dinner was burnt because I couldn't hear the oven timer over Randy yelling at the TV. He flipped the table, grabbed me by my hair, and slammed my head into the wall. My mother screamed not at him but at me. "Stop making him angry," she yelled. I couldn't even stand up. My ribs screamed with pain. I stumbled out the door barefoot and bleeding into the freezing night. I made it 3 blocks before collapsing. A woman walking her dog saw me and called 911. I don't remember much after that. Just flashes of ambulance lights, the tight feeling of a neck brace someone cutting my shirt off. When I opened my eyes in that hospital room, I hoped maybe this time someone would finally listen. Maybe this time someone would say, "You don't deserve this." But the nurse only smiled politely. "Your mom's on her way." And just like that, I knew nothing was going to change. Because even in a hospital bed, even with blood on my teeth and bones broken inside me, no one asked who did it. They already had their answer. They just didn't want to hear mine. At school, nobody asked the right questions. Teachers saw the hoodies I wore, even when it was blazing hot outside, saw the way I flinched when someone moved too quickly near me, but they didn't dig. Maybe they didn't want to. Or maybe they thought they already knew the story. Teenagers are just moody. That's what Ms. Franklin, my English teacher, once whispered to another teacher when I didn't turn in my essay. They didn't know I spent that night locked in the basement because I came home 5 minutes late. I became an expert at lying. My favorite excuse was, I'm just clumsy. It covered everything. The bruises, the black eyes, the swollen wrist from when Randy twisted my arm after I said I didn't want to sit on his lap. I always had a smile ready, even if my lip was split. I figured as long as I kept the outside world fooled, I could control something even if it was just the story. But there was one person I couldn't completely fool Mrs. Tyler, my guidance counselor. She wasn't stupid. She'd pull me into her office every few weeks just to check in. Her voice was always soft, never pushy. Is everything okay at home, Kayla? She'd ask. I'd nod. Every time. I had to, because I knew the risks. One girl in our school, Brielle, spoke out against her stepdad the year before. The whole school knew. Whispers followed her through the hallways like shadows. They called her a liar, said she made it up for attention. Her mom lost custody, and Brielle got tossed into foster care 3 towns away. I remember her locker was cleaned out by the end of the day. Just gone. Erased. I didn't want to disappear like that. I didn't want people whispering about me. I didn't want to leave my bed, my books, the little corner of life I'd carved out for myself in that awful house. I just wanted my mom to look at me one day and say, I'm sorry. I believe you. Let's get out. But she never did. The worst part was the pretending. I'd come home with a certificate for perfect attendance, or a math test with a 98, and she'd barely glance at it. If Randy was around, she'd toss it on the counter and pour him another drink. If he wasn't, she'd give me this tired look and say, don't think being smart makes you better than anyone. Like success was just another way to provoke her. Every day was a careful dance around danger. I learned to listen for footsteps. I learned to hold my breath when Randy had his bad days, which were most days. I learned which floorboards creaked and which didn't. I learned how to cry silently, so no one heard me in the middle of the night. And even when I wasn't being hit, I was being erased. Randy controlled what I wore, what I ate, how long I could be on the phone. My mom said it was just old-fashioned parenting. But it wasn't parenting. It was power. It was fear. It was a prison you couldn't see. There was this one day I'll never forget. Gym class. We were changing for PE, and I had a fresh bruise blooming down my back from where Randy had shoved me into the kitchen table 2 nights before. I turned toward the lockers quickly, thinking no one saw but one girl Maria caught a glimpse. She stared for a second, then looked away, like she'd seen something dirty. I wanted to scream, say something, ask me if I'm okay. Please don't pretend it's normal. But she didn't. No one did. That's the thing about bruises you can hide. They give everyone permission to ignore what's right in front of them. You become invisible, or worse, inconvenient. And so I kept my mouth shut just like always, because silence was safer than truth, because I had nowhere else to go, because the one person who should have protected me already chose him. My 16th birthday came and went without a single happy birthday. No candles, no cake, no friends over. Just silence at the dinner table, heavy and sharp like broken glass. Randy had been in a foul mood all day, stomping around the house, like someone owed him an apology. I knew the signs shoulders tight, bottle in hand TV too loud. I should have kept my head down. I should have swallowed my words like I always did. But I was 16. A part of me still hoped the day meant something. I had mentioned it to my mom that morning quietly, like a wish. "It's my birthday today," I said as she poured her coffee. She didn't even look up, just sipped and walked away. At dinner, Randy chewed too loud, and my fork scraped the plate by accident. The noise made him twitch. I said, "Excuse me," automatically, because I was trained to apologize for everything, even things that weren't my fault. "What did you say?" he snapped, mouthful of mashed potatoes. I said, "Excuse me," I repeated, voice barely above a whisper. "You got a damn attitude tonight, don't you?" His eyes narrowed face, turning that shade of red I learned to fear. I was just... Before I could finish, he slammed his hand down on the table, making the silverware jump. Always talking back. "You think you're grown now?" I stood up. I don't know why. Maybe I thought walking away would stop it before it started. Maybe I thought 16 gave me some kind of invisible armor. But it didn't. He shot up from his chair and grabbed my wrist, yanking me toward him. His grip was brutal, tight enough to leave purple fingerprints that lasted for days. "Sit down," he barked. "Let go of me," I cried, struggling to pull away. That's when it happened. His other hand came up and hit me hard across the face. My vision blurred. My ears rang. I stumbled back and knocked over a chair. My mom didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She sighed. Actually sighed like I had spilled juice on the rug. Then she said the words that cracked something inside me forever. "If you stopped acting like a little witch, maybe he'd treat you better." I just stood there, hand on my throbbing cheek, feeling the sting deeper than skin. She didn't come to me. Didn't ask if I was okay. She just picked up a fallen napkin and muttered, "You ruin every special day." That night, I sat in my room with the lights off, hugging my knees to my chest, trying to remember the last time I felt loved. I couldn't. Every birthday for the past 5 years had been worse than the one before. But this one broke something I didn't know could still break. I stared at the ceiling, wondering what kind of mother lets a man hurt her child and calls it discipline. What kind of mother hears her daughter cry and calls it drama? I wanted to scream at her, shake her, make her remember who I was, but she didn't see me anymore. Maybe she never really did. I took a picture of my wrist with the cheap flip phone I kept hidden behind my dresser. It wasn't much, just a blurry photo of swollen, discolored skin. But it was proof. Something real. I didn't know what I'd do with it, but it felt like I had to hold on to something, anything that confirmed I wasn't crazy. The next morning, I wore long sleeves again. No one said a word at school. Not even Mrs. Tyler. I heard girls talking about their weekend parties, their cake flavors, their new birthday outfits. I smiled and nodded when they asked what I did for mine. Just a quiet night in, I lied. I was getting really good at lying. But deep down, something in me started to harden. A quiet voice whispering, "This isn't normal. This isn't love. You don't have to stay." It wasn't a plan yet, just a seed, but it was growing. And one day I knew I'd leave, even if it killed me. Desperation makes you bold in ways you don't expect. I had tried everything. Silence, obedience, even prayer. Nothing worked. So I decided to collect proof, something real, that no one could ignore, no matter how much they wanted to. I dug out my old flip phone from the back of my sock drawer. It was scratched, half broken, and didn't have service, but the voice recorder still worked. That was all I needed. I started carrying it in my hoodie pocket thumb, always near the record button. I practiced hitting it without looking memorized. The clicks, rehearsed it like muscle memory. It didn't take long to get what I needed. Randy was consistent like that. It was a Friday night. He came home drunk, the kind of drunk that made the air thick with tension. I had forgotten to unload the dishwasher. That was all it took. The second he stepped into the kitchen and saw the dishes, his face twisted. "What the hell do you even do all day?" he growled, grabbing my arm. I pressed the button. What followed was loud, chaotic, and undeniable. His voice shouting, mine shaking, the crash of a plate, a slap, my begging soft, desperate, humiliated, "Please stop, please," followed by his snarled reply, "You'll learn to listen." When it was over, and he staggered off to the living room to pass out in front of the TV, I sat in the dark kitchen, shaking, cradling my ribs, and listening to the recording play back. It made my skin crawl, but it was real. It was his voice, my pain, all of it in 5 minutes of audio. That weekend, I went to stay with my Aunt Michelle. She was my mom's younger sister, the one who lived across town with her dogs and piles of books. She'd always been a little warmer, a little gentler. I used to think if anyone would understand, it'd be her. After dinner, I asked if we could talk. Just us. I pulled out the phone and pressed play. She didn't say a word the entire time it played. Just sat on the edge of her floral-patterned couch, mouth, slightly open eyes clouding over. I watched her hands twist the hem of her sweater. When it ended, there was a long silence. Then she pulled me into a hug, tight, motherly warm. And for a split second, I thought I was safe. "Sweetheart," she whispered into my hair, "you can't spread this. It'll tear your mother apart." I pulled back, stunned. "What?" "She's fragile," Michelle said, rubbing my arm. "And you're going through a phase. This doesn't define your life, Kayla. Families are messy. Don't make this bigger than it is." My mouth went dry. "Did you even listen to it? He hit me. He's been hitting me. For years. I'm not saying it's okay," she said quickly, like she wanted to dodge blame. "But your mom loves him. And she loves you too in her way. We handle things differently in this family." When I went to the bathroom, I left the phone on the coffee table. When I came back, it was sitting exactly where I left it, but the recording was gone. I opened the file folder. Empty. I looked at her, my voice shaking. "You deleted it." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's for the best. Trust me." That kind of thing gets around. I didn't speak for the rest of the night. I just lay awake on her guest bed, listening to the dogs snore in the hallway, wondering how many more adults would fail me before someone finally said, "Enough." That night, I learned something cruel sometimes, even when you have the proof. Undeniable, raw, and real people will still choose denial. They'll choose comfort over justice, silence over truth. I thought the recording would be my lifeline. Instead, it reminded me how alone I really was. It was a Tuesday night, when everything broke my ribs, my hope, my silence. Randy had come home even meaner than usual, slamming doors, muttering to himself, reeking of beer and stale anger. I knew better than to make noise, but I couldn't help the cough that slipped out while I was folding laundry. He turned around, like he'd been waiting for a reason. "You always got something smart to say, don't you?" he snarled. I didn't say anything. I whispered, already stepping back. "That mouth's gonna get you killed one day." He moved fast, faster than usual, grabbed the laundry basket, hurled it across the room. I ducked, but not fast enough. Then came the kick. My side lit up in white-hot pain. Another kick. I couldn't breathe. The third one cracked something inside me. I felt it hurt it like a twig snapping. I screamed or maybe whimpered, I honestly don't know. The pain swallowed everything. I crawled through the kitchen, dragging my body like it wasn't mine. My fingers slipped on the back door handle, but somehow I got it open. I didn't think. I just ran barefoot, dizzy in my pajama shorts, until my legs gave out 2 blocks away. I collapsed near someone's hedge, gasping like a dying animal. That's where she found me. The woman's name was Rita. She was walking her golden retriever just a normal night. She said later that the only reason she even spotted me was because the dog pulled toward the bushes and started whining. "Oh my God," she said, kneeling beside me. "Honey, can you hear me?" I nodded. "Barely." She called 911, stayed with me, held my hand, told me I was safe. At the hospital, I was in and out. Bright lights, cold air, the mechanical beeping of monitors. I remember a nurse gently lifting my shirt and gasping. "Jesus," she whispered under her breath. Then the social worker came. She had soft eyes and a notebook. She introduced herself as Talia and asked if she could sit. I nodded. "Kayla, I want you to know you're safe now," she said. "You're not in trouble. But I need to ask, how did this happen?" Something in her voice broke me. I started crying. Not the silent tears I'd taught myself to shed, but loud, ugly sobs. And between those sobs, I told her everything. From the first touch to the last kick. The lies. The silence. The tape that got deleted. The way nobody listened, not even my own mother. She held my hand and said I was brave. "I'm going to help you," she said. "You don't have to go back there." For the first time, I believed it. But then my mother showed up. Her hair was perfect, makeup done. Eyes red as if she'd been crying the whole ride over. She rushed into the room, arms open, voice trembling. "Oh, baby, I was so worried. What happened?" Talia stood beside my bed, cautious. My mom turned to her, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Kayla's been having a rough time. She fell. She gets unstable. She's had some emotional issues lately. It's been hard." I looked at her, stunned. "You know he did this," I croaked. She didn't even blink. "Kayla, please don't start." Talia's face changed too, like a curtain had dropped. "We'll need to document this carefully," she said, but her voice had lost its warmth. I saw it happen, the doubt creeping in. The shift from victim to troubled girl. By morning, I was discharged. The nurse handed me my clothes. The paperwork said I had accidental injuries from a fall. They wheeled me out in silence, and I went home, back to the man who broke me, back to the woman who let him. Because when people see a crying mother and a difficult daughter, they believe the one who looks more put together, even when the daughter's bones are still broken. After the hospital sent me home, I stopped waiting for anyone to save me. I knew then no social worker, no teacher, not even family was going to pull me out. If I wanted out, I'd have to do it myself. So I made a plan. It started small. I skipped breakfast and saved the lunch money my mom gave me. $1 here, $2 there. I hid it inside an empty lotion bottle buried in my closet. Every time I added a new bill, I felt a flicker of hope, like a match lighting in a dark room. I figured out I had about 4 months until summer. Final exams would be the last week of school. If I could hang on until then, no one would be paying attention. Kids disappear during summer all the time. I could be one of them. One afternoon, I stayed late at school and snuck into the library. My heart was pounding like I was stealing something. I sat at the computer farthest from the desk and typed teen shelters near me. My hands were shaking. The first few results were dead ends too far, or they didn't take teens without police reports. But then I found one in Ashford, a town about 40 miles away. They had a youth emergency program, no ID required. Just show up. I memorized the bus schedule. Route 27 from downtown transfers to Route 13. Total trip 2 hours and 15 minutes. The shelter was 3 blocks from the station. I wrote it all down in tiny letters on the back of a library receipt and folded it into my sock. After that, I kept my head low. I did the dishes, answered yes, sir, and no, ma'am avoided eye contact. I became the perfect daughter on the outside, counting days in my head like prison sentences. My ribs were healing. The bruises faded, but the clock kept ticking. I had 62 days to go, then 51, then 40. I stopped trusting anyone, even the nice ones. I didn't want to risk being talked out of it. I didn't tell Michelle. I didn't even talk to Mrs. Tyler anymore. I started wearing my headphones at school to block out everything. I was focused, obsessed. I imagined it constantly, me stepping onto that bus, the city blurring behind me, my name whispered like smoke as I disappeared into a place where Randy couldn't find me, where my mother's silence couldn't follow. But secrets don't stay buried forever. It was late April, about a month before my planned escape, when I made a mistake. I left my school bag on the kitchen chair instead of bringing it straight to my room. It was only for a second. I ran back outside to grab the trash bins. When I came back in, Randy was holding my notebook. "What's this?" he asked, flipping pages. I froze. He turned to a page where I had sketched out the map from the bus station to the shelter. My heart dropped into my stomach. "It's nothing," I said quickly, trying to snatch it. He yanked it back. "You planning a trip? No, it's just a drawing. You think you're smart." His face twisted into something hateful. "You think you can run away and make me look like a monster?" I stood there, knees shaking, mind racing. He threw the notebook down and got in my face. "You pull something like that, girl, and I swear to God you won't make it past the front door." I nodded like I believed him, like I was scared into submission. But inside something cracked open, not fear, but fury. He had just confirmed what I always knew. He didn't think I had the guts. He thought I was weak, but I wasn't. I waited until he left for work the next day, tore out every page in that notebook, burned them behind the garage. Then I rewrote the plan in my head, sharper, faster, more careful. And this time, no one would see it coming. The day it all finally blew up started like any other. Randy came home drunk, stomping through the house, like a thundercloud in boots. He'd spilled chili all over the floor and tracked it down the hallway. My mother was on the couch flipping through a magazine, pretending not to notice the slurring, or the mess, or me. Kayla, Randy bellowed. "Clean this damn floor." I stayed frozen in my room, hands gripping the edge of my desk. I only had 2 weeks left before final exams. 14 days. I had counted every single one. I could endure anything for 2 more weeks. "Kayla," he roared again, now outside my door. He didn't knock. He never did. The door flew open, slamming against the wall. "Are you deaf or just stupid? I'm doing homework," I said, without looking up, voice steady, but soft. "Homework," he mocked, stepping inside. "You think that matters? That math's gonna save you? when no one wants to hire a nasty little girl who can't even keep her mouth shut. I turned to face him. "I'm not your maid." He blinked, and then it happened fast. He lunged across the room, grabbed me by the arm, and dragged me toward the kitchen. "You ungrateful little brat," I stumbled, trying to yank free, but he was stronger. Always was. He shoved me hard straight into the stove. My head hit the metal edge with a sickening crack. The world tilted. Blood poured down my forehead into my eyes. I slid to the floor, dazed ears ringing. My mom ran in finally, but instead of calling 911, instead of rushing to help me, she turned on me. Her eyes narrowed. "Now look what you made him do." She didn't even look at the blood, didn't check if I could stand. She just grabbed a towel, threw it on the floor next to me, and snapped clean that up. I sat there, bleeding, vision blurry body, screaming in pain, and something inside me just broke. No more waiting, no more planning, no more counting days. I stood up, not because I felt strong, because I didn't. I felt like a paper doll being torn in half, but there was this little flicker inside me that refused to die. The tiniest flame of defiance. I didn't speak, didn't scream. I walked straight out the door, barefoot, bleeding, dizzy. The screen door banged behind me like a punctuation mark. I heard my mom yelling from the kitchen window, "You better come back here. Don't make me chase you down." But I didn't stop. I ran. No shoes, no phone, just pain and adrenaline. My feet hit gravel-wet grass, cold pavement. I could barely breathe, but I kept going. I didn't know where I was going, only that it had to be anywhere but there. Cars passed. None stopped. A few people glanced, then looked away. Maybe they thought I was high. Maybe they didn't care. But it didn't matter. I was out. After about 10 blocks, I ducked behind a closed laundromat and collapsed. My knees gave out, and I sank to the concrete, clutching my ribs. My breath came in ragged bursts. My head throbbed. I felt blood running down my neck. I didn't cry. I just sat there listening to the silence around me. The buzz of a street lamp. The faraway bark of a dog. The sound of my own heart still beating. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was someone's prisoner. I didn't feel safe, not yet. But I felt free. And in that terrifying, bloody, broken moment, freedom was enough. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "Keep walking." Because even if I didn't know what tomorrow looked like, I knew I'd never go back. Not ever again. I made it to the shelter. I don't remember every step, only that my legs kept moving long after my body begged me to stop. When I finally reached the shelter's front door, I collapsed on the steps. Someone opened it within seconds. A woman with kind eyes crouched beside me, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and said, "You're safe now." I didn't believe her. Not at first. But she meant it. Inside they gave me warm soup, clean clothes, and a room with a real bed. I hadn't felt clean in years. But more than anything, they gave me something I hadn't known I needed: validation. They didn't ask what I did to deserve it. They didn't doubt the bruises or call me dramatic. They just listened. Really listened. And that broke me in the best way. A counselor named Erica sat with me every day that first week. She never rushed me, never flinched at my stories. She looked me in the eye like I mattered, like I wasn't just another broken girl. She helped me breathe again. Justice wasn't instant. It never is. It took 6 long months of police interviews, court documents, and therapy sessions. They recorded everything. Asked me to repeat details over and over. I hated it, but I did it. For me. For the version of me who once believed no one would ever hear her. My mother never showed up to court. Not once. No apology. No letter. No tears. She disappeared from the narrative like I never existed. That should have hurt more, but honestly, it didn't. By then I had already grieved the mother I needed and let go of the one I had. Randy pled guilty to felony assault. Not the sexual abuse, there wasn't enough evidence for that, they said. Just the broken ribs and hospital report. He got time. Not nearly enough. But still, he was behind bars. And I was not. That was enough for now. Healing was slower than I expected. The bruises faded in weeks, but the shame stuck around like fog. It took me months to stop jumping at sudden noises, to stop calling myself names I'd heard whispered and shouted for years. Liar, evil, ungrateful, too sensitive. Erica reminded me every day, you were a child, and you survived. I didn't believe it at first. I thought survival meant strength, and I didn't feel strong. I felt shattered. But she told me that survival isn't loud or pretty. It's waking up eating when you don't want to, and choosing every day not to give up. And little by little, I started to believe her. I changed my name legally. I dropped Monroe and took on a new last name, one that wasn't tied to shame or silence. I moved to a new state, finished high school, through an online program, and applied to college. I didn't tell anyone my full story, unless I wanted to. That was power. Now I'm 20, and in my second year of college studying psychology. I want to work with girls like me, ones who grew up learning to hide bruises and bite their tongues. I want to be the person I needed when I was 12, 13, 15, and bleeding on the inside. Because the truth is, there are so many of us. Too many. If you're hearing this, and you're still in it, if you're scared or alone or unsure if your pain even counts, I want you to know something, it counts. You matter. And even if no one believes you yet, that doesn't mean you're lying. Keep walking. Keep screaming. Keep surviving. Someone will listen. It might not be your family. It might not be today. But you will find your people. You will find your way out. And when you do, I hope you remember what they tried to make you forget. You are not the problem. You never were. At just 15, Kayla Monroe wakes up in a hospital bed, bruised, bloodied, and abandoned by the people who should have protected her. Behind closed doors, her seemingly perfect family hides years of abuse, denial, and silence. Her stepfather is a monster in disguise, and her own mother chooses to ignore the horror unfolding under their roof. Branded as ungrateful and evil, whenever she speaks up, Kayla's cries for help fall on deaf ears, until one brutal night forces her to run. With nothing but raw courage and a sliver of hope, she escapes the nightmare and reclaims her life, piece by piece. This is the powerful, heartbreaking, and ultimately empowering journey of a girl who refused to be silenced. If this story moved, you subscribe to our channel for more true-to-life stories that expose injustice and celebrate resilience. Don't forget to like, comment, and share to help others find their voice too.